Okay, so we are going into a new series here for the new year, and it is called Why Church, which is maybe a question that, like it or not, is upon us in our world. We have seen over the last 20 years what has been called the Great De-Churching, where millions of people who would probably still identify themselves as a Christian have, for whatever reason, elected not to be part of a church. And so that means that our culture is asking the question, why church? And those questions certainly seep into our minds as well. And so we wanted to start the new year with kind of addressing that big question. Why do this old-fashioned thing called church? Are there not easier, more efficient ways to get my spiritual vitamin than sitting with such goofy people every Sunday? The goofy people are always sitting next to you, not you. I'm not talking about you, but the person next to you. Why church? So as I was kind of dwelling upon this topic, my mind goes to Nate Bargatze. Do you guys know Nate Bargatze? Yeah, so he's a clean comic, very funny guy. He's got several specials on Netflix and Amazon Prime. And he just has great, just kind of observational, kind of domestic humor. And he shared in one of his bits about having his first child and how they went to the hospital. And they had the baby, and how they were in the hospital for 2-3 days, and everybody at the hospital just stressed repeatedly, don't shake the baby. Don't shake the baby. That was like the number one message. Every nurse, every lactation expert, every doctor, every person that would visit them would just say, listen, you're going to want to shake that baby, but you can't. Don't shake the baby. They had to watch a video on not shaking the baby. I mean, it was drilled into them. Nate Bargatze shared that one person said, yeah, every time I thought about shaking the baby, I just had to take a walk. And so I walked like 45 miles in the first month of my kid. And so Nate is just talking about how like crazy it is to hear all of this messaging about not shaking the baby, because who's going to shake the baby? But then he shares that after they get home with the baby and that baby cries all night long and they haven't slept and they're absolutely exhausted, that he looks at his wife and he's like, are we supposed to shake this baby? Do we need to shake the baby? Is that what we're supposed to? I think maybe that's what we're supposed to do. What is the idea behind that? It's that we, as soon as we get out of the hospital, the message that was so clear, that was so bright, that was so easy to understand, the moment he gets home into his real life, into the real pressures of being a dad, of going through the rhythm and the grind of parenting, it quickly falls out of his mind. And he finds himself thinking the unthinkable and even imagining doing the unthinkable. Now, how does that relate to church? Well, none of you have ever shaken your baby, and I know all of that's good and well, but every Sunday we come here to be reminded that we live in and live out the good news of Jesus. And I hammer that from every message. We put it in every song that we sing. We center ourselves in it in the communion table. And how quickly today will you depart from that message and start thinking that your worth is what you have done or what you do or don't do, and not what he has already done? How many of us will find ourselves living in seeking our security and our value and our competence or our approval or our acceptance or our accomplishments, rather than living in you have been purchased, redeemed, and brought into the family of God by Jesus Christ? How many of us, before the day is over, will, rather than living out our freedom and security in Christ, live out anxiety and fear and selfishness and anger. You see, we will figuratively leave here and in hours be thinking about shaking the baby. That is because we are people that lose the message. And so we must have it constantly repeated, constantly renewed. The purpose of this series, Why Church, is to really accomplish two things. I want us to recognize the importance of this, of real church, of being in church, of committing to church, physical, present church. And second, to help us know what is a healthy church, what is a biblical church, and prepare us for the very important step that we are about to take in electing elders as overseers and shepherds of this church. And we're doing that by looking at this letter written by the Apostle Peter called 1 Peter. And just to give you a little bit of context, Peter is writing to a group of churches that are kind of spread out through the area of modern-day Turkey. And he is writing to them late in the first century, around the 60 to 65 AD time period. So he is writing to new Christians living in a very foreign, pagan culture. The Roman culture was dominant. There was no Christian seedbed. These were the new people that were believing in Jesus. They had nobody but the church. And Peter refers to these people as exiles or strangers. That the fact that they are believers makes them weirdos in the culture around them. And his word is, you must remain strong. You must remain committed. You must remain grounded in this gospel. And so he really stresses the church, the fellowship, the body of believers as an essential to the survival of their faith. And to do this, he works through this letter a metaphor about sheep and shepherds. We read the part in chapter 2 and the part in chapter 5. And he reveals something very kind of humbling. He calls us Christians sheep. He calls us sheep. That's what he wants us to have as our identity. That's what he wants us to relate to, that we are sheep. Now, sheep, as we were going to see, is not the most flattering, elevating term. But Peter gives us the descriptor that we are sheep for a very important reason. You see, to understand why church is so important, we must understand our sheep-ness. We must understand why Peter calls us sheep. And so we're going to go through this passage. We're going to actually get 3 sermons out of these 2 passages. But for now, we are going to dwell on 3 facets of our sheep-ness that we must understand. And when we understand these 3 facets of our sheep-ness, we will answer the question, why church? Okay? The first facet of our sheep-ness is that we are prone to wander. We are prone to wander. Peter says there in verse 25, for you were straying like sheep. I hate when I am writing a sermon, especially a sermon about a topic like this, and the news cycle presents a shockingly appropriate but devastating example of our proneness to wander. But this week, if you were aware, the news that the Christian influencer, writer, theologian, Philip Yancey, admitted that he had committed an 8-year affair and is thereby disqualified and retiring from all ministry. Philip Yancey wrote, for many of us, one of the definitive books on grace, Philip Yancey has been a voice of the sweetness of the gospel to the evangelical world for decades. And here he is in his 70s, and he has catastrophically disqualified himself. He wrote in his resignation, "To my great shame, I confess that for 8 years, I willfully engaged in a sinful affair with a married woman. My conduct defied everything that I believe about marriage. It was also totally inconsistent with my faith and my writings and caused deep pain for her husband and both of our families." These stories always shake me because Philip Yancey is a warning that you can never be so established, so well read, so well published, put together so many years of faithful ministry, and be secure from falling away. Why? How? How does the guy who writes the book on grace fall into disqualifying sin? I don't mean to oversimplify it. There will be many autopsies on what exactly happened with Yancey and his ministry, but I can tell you that inside of all of it, somewhere, Yancey forgot he was a sheep. Yancey forgot he was a sheep. He started thinking, I'm ahead, I'm better, I can handle this on my own. And he forgot he was a sheep. Peter reminds all of his readers that we are like sheep. And what does he mean when he says that we are like sheep? He means that we stray. As sheep, we stray. Sheep wander. They follow their appetite. They get lost. Straying is dangerous. The sheep doesn't stray out of malice or out of a desire to get in trouble. The sheep stray imperceptibly, unintentionally. They just keep going to the next flavorful bush to nibble at until all of a sudden they're away, they're apart, they have strayed. It reminds me of when I would go to the grocery store with my mom as a kid. I would get so caught up with some toy in the toy aisle that I would just get consumed and not realize that my mom had gone 3-4 aisles down the store and I didn't even realize it. Suddenly, I'm lost. That's straying. But it is dangerous. Because straying, as innocent, unintentional, imperceptible as it might be, is moving away from the flock. It's moving away from the shepherd. It's moving from the pasture to the wilderness. It's moving from the shepherd's voice to the voices in the world. It is moving from the place of protection to the place of being prey. Peter, continuing his metaphor of being sheep, says this in chapter 5, verse 8. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Lions love strays. Getting apart from the flock makes you a meal for the roaring lion. Notice that Peter says someone. He is talking about an individual. He is talking about somebody singled out. He is talking about the roaring lion constantly coming after the stray. And so when you are a stray, you are no longer protected. You are in a place of prey. Even more, straying means that you are going from the place of life and flourishing to the place of death. There was a shocking report that was captured in the Associated Press back in 2005 that described a group of sheep that had gotten away from their shepherds and had gotten up on a tall cliff. And the first one stepped off the cliff and fell to its death hundreds of feet below. And the second sheep followed that sheep right off the cliff. The third sheep did that. Do you know how many sheep stupidly walked off this cliff? 1,500. 1,500. The only thing that saved these sheep's lives is the pile of dead sheep got so high that it eventually became a cushion that allowed the last sheep to fall into a soft pillow and walk away. But here is what we must recognize. Sheep are so dumb that they will walk themselves into death. And Peter knows shepherding, and he knows sheep. And I assure you that what I am giving to you is what he meant for you to understand when he said, you are sheep. You are playing with your own death. You are flirting with the pit. How do we know that? Because when we look at how do we stray, Peter is quoting Isaiah chapter 53, verse 6, which says this: all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. You see, every one of us are sheep who have piled up the dangers and the sins and the death sentence of going our own way so that someone had to have the iniquity laid upon him to save us from death. Now, I think it is interesting in Isaiah 53 that what defines the word astray, what is the phrase that Isaiah wants us to know equals going astray, is this phrase, going his own way. That is what it means to go astray. So before you challenge me that you are not a sheep prone to wander, are you a person that really prefers to go his own way? Do you like making your own way, choosing your own way? This is what is used in the scripture repeatedly as what is right in our own eyes. None of us ever go against what is right in our own eyes because it's right in our own eyes. But that is the definition of going astray. Here's the thing. The moment you leave this building, the moment you leave this fellowship, the world is going to greet you with 1,000 ways to go your own way. Jesus said in John chapter 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. And the thief lives right outside the boundary of the flock, ready to pluck off, ready to steal away, ready to destroy whatever sheep is out there going astray. There are so many thieves at the door. There are isms that are just ready to clutch you, whether it be relativism. What is right in my own eyes? This is true for me. This works for me. Individualism. I decide. Tribalism. Well, as long as my group does it, it's okay. hedonism, do what feels good, nationalism, liberalism, conservatism, naturalism, materialism. All of these stand at the door to say, be our disciple. And you will not come back here next week having not been discipled by one of these. And having been led astray some distance by what the world has told you is good and right and beautiful. You are going to be met by thieves that are going to tell you you are entitled to all sorts of things. They are going to start preaching to you, you deserve a little more pleasure. You deserve a little bit more respect. You deserve a better wife. And they are going to attack you and make you think that you should have something and go and take it, if only in your mind. You will be lured by enticements. I have a TikTok account, and you know how those reels work. You'll go through 2 or 3 of a golden retriever, one making some funny joke, you laugh. And here's what happens to me. 4th or 5th one will come up, and it is a beautiful woman dressed in a way that you can see her shape. And she is not, it's not her that the video is about. She is talking about, some new way to shorten the line at Disney World or something. And so you're like, well, I want to know about shortening the line at Disney World. That makes good sense to me. And so, you watch this video, and there's an algorithm always watching you. And the algorithm is trying to decide, is this guy interested in Disney World, or is this guy interested in this woman? And so you scroll again, and you get a couple videos about Disney World, but then you get another video with a beautiful woman talking about something else, and I'll be darned, I'm interested in that topic too. Always. And here is the thing. Slowly but surely, it is feeding you just a little bit temptation, just a little bit of enticement, until suddenly you start picking up the TikTok app, wondering how many videos you have to flick through to get rid of these dogs so you can see somebody in Lululemons. That's happening all the time. We are sheep prone to wander. You see, straying will begin. I don't have to prove that. You can go back to your own experience. It will happen immediately the moment you leave this fellowship. And so my question to you is to take this moment to discern where the straying will start, where the foothold will show up. Where has it happened before? What I want you to grasp in this first point is we have all strayed. We are sheep. We are prone to wander. And so the second facet of our sheepness that I want us to see is that we are rescued by the Good Shepherd. Though we have strayed, all of us have strayed. What a beautiful thing it is that we are not lost. Having strayed into all sorts of destruction, having strayed to the edge of so many pits, having strayed into so many lions' dens, we are not lost. We are here this morning. Why? Because you strayed in here? No. We are not lost because the Good Shepherd came for us. Look at what it says in verse 25. We have been returned to the shepherd and overseer of our souls. The word returned is passive, which means it ain't us that did it. We were not the returners. We are not the subject of the verb return. We were returned. It is not our work. It is that the Good Shepherd has found us and rescued us. Jesus describes this rescue mission for us in one of his parables in Luke chapter 15, where he says these words, "What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost.'" How does the Good Shepherd find and return his sheep? This is what Peter tells us was the work of finding us in verses 22 and 23 of chapter 2. It says, he committed no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. You see what Peter is describing there is the difference between the shepherd and the sheep. The sheep go astray. They go their own way. But the shepherd rescued us by living perfectly God's way. The shepherd rescued us by taking God's way in our place. When it says there was no sin, there was no deceit, that he entrusted himself to him who judges justly, our shepherd lived and fulfilled perfectly the will of God. He never took one stray step. He never departed from the path that was given to him. He walked the way of God perfectly. And I think in this parable, there is a remarkable picture of how Jesus gives us his righteousness, how Jesus makes us righteous. In that parable, how does the shepherd bring the lost sheep home? He puts the sheep on his shoulders. He puts the sheep on his shoulders. He walks the path of righteousness with us on his back. He makes us righteous by placing us upon his righteousness. You see, there is nothing righteous in us. What we contributed to the situation was going completely astray. How did we get back to the path of righteousness? We were carried by the one who takes the path of righteousness. And by the fact that his steps, we are on his shoulders, we also take the path of righteousness. And so we are made righteous not by anything that we have done, but entirely by his taking us with him. Our righteousness is entirely his doing, not our own. We don't get back to the fold and say, look how I fixed myself up. Look how I used my GPS. Look how I used my sense of smell to find the flock again. The only way that the lost sheep gets back to the flock is the one who is righteous comes for the unrighteous and brings them through his righteousness back to the flock. Even more than that, it says, by his wounds we are healed. The Good Shepherd does not just carry us. He lays down his life to bring us home. When he goes out and he finds that you are in the hunting grounds of the lions, when he knows that you are prey and he sees the lion coming to take you away, he lays his life down. He takes the bite of the lion. When he sees you falling over the pit, he goes into the pit ahead of you so that he can be your cushion. We had to be rescued from the lion and the pit. He faced the lion, he went to the bottom, he took death itself to deliver us. So that we look at Psalm 103:4, and it says of him, he who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy. Beloved, you are the sheep that fell over the cliff, but you should have died. But instead of dying, you were caught by the good shepherd who laid himself down to take the death from you. We do not save ourselves. If anything, we should see in this, we cannot. His death is our life. His suffering is our deliverance. His righteousness is our restoration. Here's what I want you to grasp before we go to our final point. Our sheep-ness reminds us that no matter how astray we have been, the good shepherd brings us home. No matter how many lions you have walked into the middle of, no matter how tall the cliff is that you're tumbling over, no matter how parched and famine-filled the land is that you are in, no matter how astray you have been, whether it be Philip Yancey and an 8-year affair, whether it be cheating and lying on your tests, whether it be betraying or doing something illegal, no matter how far you have gone astray, the good shepherd brings us home. And so if you are here today so aware, I am astray, so aware of how far you have fallen, of all of the things that you have done that has taken you so far from the will of God, from this smile, and you say, I am so astray. Listen to the last sentence of Luke 15. There is more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents. The word to you then, you don't have to bring yourself home. You just have to repent. You just have to say, I am astray. I have gone somewhere I don't want to be. I am afraid. I am astray. I have committed myself to my own way. I have done things I should not have done. I have borne fruit of wretchedness. Cry out, I am astray. Save me. And the shepherd returns you. You make no step in the right direction. Just cry, I am astray. And the good shepherd brings you home. Have you done that? It is wide open. That is the shepherd's desire. The third facet of our sheepness is that we are kept safe in his flock. So look now at verse 25, the last part of verse 25. You have now returned to the shepherd and the overseer of your souls. That's the great news. We are rescued. Now we are returned. Now my question for you is, where has the good shepherd returned us? This is so key to understand the answer to this question as we go through this study titled, Why Church? Where has the Good Shepherd returned us? The answer to that is given to us in chapter 5, verse 2. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly as God would have you. Do you see what it says there? He has returned you to the flock of God. That is what the Good Shepherd has done. We grossly misread the parable of the lost sheep if we stop at, I've been found, I've been put on the shoulders of the shepherd, and that's the end of the story. No, the end of the story is that he leaves the one, he leaves the 99 for the one, but the end of the story is he brings the one back to the 99. The end of the story is that the one rejoins the 99. The parable is a failure if the one is not brought back to the 99. The purpose of the parable is that he goes to reach the lost one to make his flock whole. What makes you astray is you are outside the flock. And so here's an important point that we cannot minimize. Being in the flock is the proof that we are no longer astray, that we are no longer lost. There are countless people in our country today that say, yes, I am found. Yes, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. And then you say, well, what church do you go to? Oh, I don't do church. How did you find yourself as found and not be part of the flock? You see, being in the flock is proof that we are no longer astray. It is proof that he is our shepherd. We have been put in the flock to keep us safe from the lion, the world, and the flesh. How? This is how you are kept safe. Remember your sheep-ness. The shepherd is always with the flock. What protects the sheep is the shepherd. The strength of the sheep is its nearness to the shepherd. And so if you want to be kept safe, you need to be in the shepherd's flock. So what does it mean to be in his flock? Look again at verse 5:2. I didn't say everything about it. The flock of God, but there's another phrase added. The flock of God among you. The flock of God among you. Peter is saying this flock that I'm talking about is not a spiritual, invisible, universal idea of I'm a Christian, therefore I'm a part of a church. I'm part of the church. It is specific, it is concrete, it is particular. This church among you is a local gathering. It is a local church that he is saying the flock of God is found in. Being in the flock of God is not the same thing as identifying yourself as a Christian. Being in the flock of God is being in a local church. You see, the view of the scriptures on the local church is very high. It is a very important aspect of being a Christian. The local church is given to keep us near the shepherd, to keep us safe. Is this how you see church? Do you see church as essential to your witness as a Christian? I grew up in a Christian home, but I know so many times on Sunday morning, we would be in the living room with the family, my dad, my mom, and myself, and we would be getting pretty close to time to get ready for church, and we'd start talking about, are we going to go today? And before too long, we would find a reason or two. We don't need to go today. So it's the associate pastor preaching, or it's a music session, or so-and-so is going to be singing, and I just cannot listen to that person sing. We would come up with all sorts of things. And before too long, we would probably be missing church 1, 2, maybe even 3 times in a month. And that was just not a big deal because we had not hitched. You know what? As a Christian, I'm part of the flock. We had somehow created an identity that I can be a Christian and not be in the flock. And I know if you're a family like mine, you are battling a sports schedule every week. And you have to decide how committed is being a part of a church to being a believer. And you are telling the world how much you think those two go together when you bend everything to meet the sports schedule or not. I'm not saying that you can never miss church for sports. I'm saying look at how much sports is attacking your commitment to being in the flock. And do you accept that cost? Tired. I mean, gosh, the only night that's any fun is Saturday night. It is hard. Maybe we take in our minds, 50% is good. It is actually true that the percentage of regularity that is considered a regular attender for church has gone from weekly to now monthly. Because the trend has been 1 out of 4 is fine for the committed. I'll catch it online. Is online church the same as being shoulder to shoulder with fellow people under the conviction of the Spirit, of fellow believers singing and lifting up the grace and glory of God? Is it the same? I've had church hurt. I have had church hurt. Are we going to allow the church that hurt us to steal us and make us astray from the flock of God? You may need to go to another church if you've been hurt. That's fine. But church hurt is not a valid reason for no church. Let me stop being preachy and lay it in front of you in a different way. Putting us in the flock is what the Good Shepherd died for. He returned us to the flock. He went out to fight the lions, to save us from the pit, to return us, to bring us here. The flock of God is what he gives those people he gave his life to. Do we see church as that precious gift? Do we need to say, my reason for not coming to church on one side of a piece of paper, and Jesus died for me to be part of church on the other? I think that would simplify a lot of, are we going today? But maybe that's what we need to do, to fix in our minds. This flock, as messed up as it is and as stinky as some of these sheep are, is what Jesus died for. And he put me here as part of my salvation. It is inconsistent to claim Jesus as your shepherd and live astray from the flock. Beloved, it is by being in church that we are counted as his flock. How does he know he has 99? How does he know he has one missing? He counts his flock. You will want to shake the baby That's going to happen. It's going to happen for some of us in 20 minutes, for some of us in 3 hours. Somehow or another, you are going to forget your identity, that you are blood-bought, that you are loved, that you are a child of God, that you have everything that you need. You have the inheritance of heaven. You will forget that, and you will do stupid stuff in not much time. My question is, how astray will you go? You can only go so astray if you're saying, but I'll be back here next week. Because I want the shepherd to bring me back to what's true. Beloved, remember that you are sheep. The strength of the sheep is its nearness to the shepherd. And so, how will you stay near to the shepherd? There are many answers that you could have to that question, but I can't let it be anything less than prioritize your fellowship in the church. And Renew seeks to be a church that keeps you close to the shepherd. And if you are not part of the Renew cycle, I would really encourage you to be part of the Renew cycle. That is to make sure that you are enjoying these 3 meals a week: the Lord's table, Sunday supper, and share supper. We have all 3 of these so that you are constantly being fed and drawn near to your shepherd. Beloved, let us not neglect our blood-bought place in his flock. Amen?